Welcome to Wall Street Unmasked, how the truth hurts their wallets. I'm David Nassief, and today we're going to talk about a popular debate. Do you use a financial advisor or do you do it yourself? Full disclosure, I do it myself, and I couldn't be more thrilled with the results. But let's take a look at how Wall Street sees things. They spend billions trying to convince everyone that they need their expertise. They say, please don't do this yourself. I'm your friend. Let an expert do this. It's too complicated. It's too dangerous for an individual to do it themselves. Let us take. If you don't have someone with a bunch of initials after the name doing it for you, that's dangerous. You need to help. Bull. That is not dangerous. I did it, and many millions of people have done it very successfully. So here's the thing. When they try to convince you of this, they don't talk about something really critical. Their fees. And if they do bring up the fees, it's never in dollar amounts. It's always in percentages, and they all seem so small. But here's the point that everyone needs to understand. Compounded over decades, those appearingly small percentages can actually eat a third of your retirement nest egg. Wall Street has a favorite trick, and you better know about it. It's called complexity. They love to make it as complicated as possible, your portfolio. As a matter of fact, they'll come out and give you a 50-page document, sometimes more, with charts and graphs and tables and all kinds of things. And when you see it and you look and you go, man, that's complicated. I'm so glad I got an expert. That's it. That's the winning number. They won the game. You feel it's too complicated. You can't do it. That's the whole point of the 50-page report. It's not about the analyst. It's about scaring you. It's about creating fear in you so you need them. Let me tell you how my approach is so ridiculously different than theirs. Okay, theirs is 50 pages. What I use is a one-page wealth compass. I wrote a book about it, and this is literally the one page. Matter of fact, if you want it, I'll give it to you for free. You don't have to pay me a penny. It's at onepagewealthcompass.com/free. But the point is this. I don't have a complicated system. It's all distilled down to one page, and I have done amazing. Matter of fact, I was fired at age 63, nearly broke. Using this simple one-page system, 6 years later at 69, I achieved what I thought was impossible, a 7-figure portfolio and real financial freedom. Here's the absolute truth of the situation. Wall Street loves complexity, but the truth is simplicity is for winners. Complexity is for victims. So the question is there anybody out there that should have a financial advisor? Well, I have a friend who's a financial advisor. He's very good, very competent. I would never use him just because I'm a do-it-yourselfer, but he's a very competent person. And I remember I saw him once in Home Depot. That week, the market was terrible. For me, it was really good. But when it goes down, most people think it's bad. I think that's a buying opportunity. I don't mark a time, but I feel lucky when I buy it when the market's down. Anyways, I told him, I said, well, I bet you got some interesting calls this week. And he goes, oh, he rolled his eyes. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. He says, this is one guy. He kept calling me, but I was with appointments all day. Finally, I got back to him at the end of the day. When I got him on the phone, he was practically hyperventilating. I'm losing my shirt. He says, I'm losing everything, my retirement. We got to get out. I need to get in cash, everything. And this is an intelligent guy. He's an architect and all that kind of thing. But anyways, my friend let him go on and on. Then after he was done, he calmly explained to them, they plan for this with their portfolio allocation. They have a segment of it in fixed, which is not being affected by the current market downturn. You're going to be just fine. You can weather this out. The last thing you want to do is sell when the market's down, because that locks in the losses and it makes them permanent. So this is what the fixed is for. After he explained it, after he calmed it down in a very calm voice, the guy at the end said, okay, you're right. And so he hung up. That's the kind of guy that needs a financial advisor. Okay, now let me tell you something. I told you earlier that it could cost you as much as a third of your portfolio, 20% to a third of your portfolio. Fees compounded over the life of your investments with a financial advisor. But that's better than losing 50% to 70% of your portfolio from emotional roller coaster investments. And that's the truth. Whether you decide to do it yourself or hire a financial planner, that's a decision that you and you alone should make. But let me tell you, there's one thing you need to remember. You must be the CEO of your wealth building. You cannot delegate that responsibility to someone else. And the best way to do that is to learn about the market somewhat. What I did, is because I was in a desperate situation at 63, nearly broke, I read 21 books on personal finance, listened to 13 podcasts consistently, read blogs, newsletters. Every time I got an idea, I wrote it down. Then I kept refining it till I got it down to one piece of paper and what I call my one-page wealth compass. I named the book after it too. Anyways, I I'd be happy to share with you for no cost or obligation. You can have the secret sauce that took me from nearly broke to a millionaire in 6 years. Go to onepagewealthcompass.com/free and download your own copy. Let me say one thing to leave you with. Nobody cares more about your wealth than you do. Nobody. And today we're going to talk about a picture that Wall Street likes to paint, the ideal retirement, filled with years of leisure and purchases. And if you just give them your money to manage, they will hand you back this picture-perfect life. Well, the reality is quite different for most people, even for those who achieve financial independence. Okay, here's the deal. When you give up your career and your daily purpose that you had been doing for 40 years or whatever, all of a sudden things start happening. And I call it the 4D decline. And let's look at each one of them individually. The first D is dementia, or cognitive decline. Harvard Medical School data shows that dropping complex daily mental challenges cuts your brain's cognitive resilience in half. Literally, use it or lose it. The second D is depression. A massive study across 11 European countries found that entering full retirement triggers a staggering 40% increase in the risk of depression. The third D is disability. Data from the University of Michigan Landmark Health and Retirement Study shows that walking away from a structured, active goals triggers an immediate 16% spike in physical mobility limitations. And the fourth D is death. Data published in the British Medical Journal tracking thousands of employees showed that retiring at 55 instead of 65 literally doubles the mortality risk. Eliminating your mission is life-threatening. The reality is too many Wall Street planners fail to mention any of this in their beautiful, slick retirement brochures. Did you know that the world's healthiest and longest living people have absolutely no word for retirement? That's according to the global longevity study called the Blue Zones, where they go to places and study people who routinely live to over 100 years old with sharp minds and active bodies. This concept of retirement does not exist. Instead, in places like Okinawa, Japan, they live by the word Ikigai, which literally translates into the reason you get out of bed in the morning. For a 102-year-old karate master, it's teaching. For a 100-year-old fisherman, it's feeding his village. Yes, leisure is important and fun is important, but it's the dessert. It's not the appetizer, the salad, and the entree. You know, data from a landmark Harvard study of professionals reveals that having fun doesn't protect your health. Feeling useful does. Seniors who actively volunteer have a 30% decrease in mortality rate than those who just focus on self-indulgence and hobbies. Your body literally knows if you are contributing or consuming. It's time to create a life that doesn't require a finish line. That is the essence of FIGNA. Financial independence, graduate to next adventure. Most people fail at retirement because they treat it like a permanent vacation instead of a new adventure. The truth is, traditional retirement is a psychological trap. And the reason I say that is because according to sociologist Robert Archlay's landmark research, new retirees quickly slide into 3 stages. The first stage is a brief honeymoon period. Stage number 2 is quickly followed with disenchantment. By the third stage, people realize that endless leisure without contribution feels a lot less like freedom and a lot more like emptiness. Now, there's further data from a multi-decade Harvard study of adult development and the primary health challenges replacing the structure that naturally comes with a career in retirement, okay? And that's a lot more difficult than people realize. Just simply having free time is definitely not enough. Whether your next adventure is working at a food bank, helping with kids' sports team, or teaching literacy, the important thing is not to just show up when you feel like it, to create some kind of structure with focus to give you your retirement real purpose. That's why I created FIGNA, Financial Independence, Graduate to Next Adventure. Radical simplicity is the solution. This is something Wall Street can't give you. What you need is a simple one-page compass to guide you into your next adventure. Please don't buy into Wall Street's slick retirement pitch that forces people into a multi-level shutdown. Take control of your financial independence and your life purpose with a one-page compass of your own to give yourself the real reason for getting up in the morning with excitement. Use my one-page wealth compass as a guide if you like, as a template. You can get it for free at onepagewealthcompass.com/free. It's time to graduate to your next adventure to uncover real happiness at any stage of life. Today we're going to talk about how class rank gets turned upside down. In 2008, during the Great Recession, a young man graduates from law school second to the last in his class. Legal jobs were very hard to come by at that time, even for top graduates, so he knew his job prospects were very slim. But the thing is, he had a superpower. He chose to go to a state university and worked multiple summer jobs and part-time during the school year, and was able to graduate as a result from law school completely debt-free with a small cushion of savings. Now, with no monthly debt breathing down his neck, he decided he could take a risk, and he opened up his own law practice. Now, in the beginning, he had no mentor to guide him, and so in the beginning, he would take on clients sometimes for no money at all, just to gain experience. For those first 13 months, he made very little money, but then the tide turned, and business started to pick up significantly. So much so, he needed to hire an attorney to help him. So he hired someone from his class, a very bright student who was actually number one in the class. But this valedictorian was drowning in student loan debt and desperately needed a paycheck just to stay afloat. So many people, when it comes to debt, they just look at the interest rate. But the real trap in debt is it suffocates our options in too many cases, and it limits your real potential. Let me tell you about a friend of mine whose name, we'll call him Jason. He's a recent retiree, and he was going to put a $100,000 addition on his house of a garage to store some of the cars he collects. And when his advisor found out, he had the money, by the way, cash to pay for this. But when his financial advisor found out about this, he says, no. Recently, you've been making more money in the market than a loan would cost. Why not take a loan out on the garage and then make the difference in a profit? And so Jason thought, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So instead of paying cash, take a loan out. Wall Street calls this a sophisticated debt arbitrage strategy. But what they fail to tell you is what happens when the market doesn't cooperate. And there's a thing called a sequence of returns risk, where early on in a retiree's retirement, if his portfolio drops significantly, that could be a real problem for him running out of money before the end. So anyways, he has to cut back. And so say now Jason has to cut back significantly in his lifestyle because his market cut his portfolio significantly. But now on top of that, he's got this debt payment that he wouldn't have had to make his lifestyle even more cramped and more difficult. And so I tell you, maybe the advisor will make the payments for him, just till things turn around. Don't you think that'll happen? Okay. Debt arbitrage, like Wall Street likes to call, I think it should be called debt arbitrage Russian roulette, because no one knows what's going to happen with the market. I have a real problem when Wall Street advisors give advice that maximize their paycheck at the risk of their client's portfolio. And to add insult to injury, his advisor's homepage on his website, and the centerpiece of it is fiduciary. He advertises himself. Good luck taking that one to court. Let's see when debt can turn setbacks into disasters. Let's say you have a job where you get laid off due to a downsizing because of a recession, and you took out years prior a 30-year mortgage based on your mortgage lender's advice, and you're now in year 12. But the problem is your investments have crashed, you're behind in payments, and foreclosure looms. Now, you're not just looking for a job, you're looking for a job with 10x the stress because you're fighting to keep a roof over your family's head. But let's say your debt situation was handled differently. Same recession, same job loss, but this time earlier when the mortgage lender offered you a 30-year loan, you ignored his advice and got a 15-year loan. And when you could, you made extra payments along the way. And so now in year 11, you have a mortgage-free house. And in year 12, when you get laid off, you don't have the stress of worrying about foreclosure because you and your family are secure. And now you can look for a job with real clarity, real focus, and a calmness within. The moral is never let the lender's guidelines become your buying guidelines. When Wall Street talks about debt, they conveniently miss the real risk. Let's look at the math. Say you're making a $500 loan payment to the bank for 20 years. That's $120,000 out of your pocket. But say you take that exact same $500 a month and invest it at a 10% return. That grows to over $380,000. That's a $500,000 difference. And that's an example of working on the bank's plan to make them wealthy and not you. It's important to remember remember, when you don't have your own plan, you're part of someone else's. If this helped you see the simpler truth today, please like, share, or visit onepagewealthcompass.com. See you next time.